Welcome to Judge It, where we don't just skim the surface of justice. We dive into its weird, murky depths. Today, we're tackling a law so bizarre you'll think it's fake. In Florida, it's illegal to leave your elephant tied to a parking meter without paying the fee. Yeah, you heard that right. But here's the kicker. This isn't just a dusty old rule for laughs. It's got teeth, and it bit hard in 1982 when a circus worker got slapped with a fine and a night in jail. Curious yet? Let's unpack this lost folklore tale and see what it says about America's legal system. Let's set the stage. Florida's always been a bit of a circus, figuratively and literally. Back in the early 1900s, traveling circuses were big business, rolling through towns with lions, clowns, and, of course, elephants. Cities had to deal with the chaos, so they slapped together rules to keep things in check. One of those rules, passed in 1920 Sarasota, a circus hub, was Ordinance 17-32. No person shall tie an elephant to a parking meter without depositing the appropriate coin. Makes sense for the time, right? Fast forward to 1982, and that same law is still on the books, collecting dust, until it catches Jimmy Russo off guard. Jimmy's a 29-year-old roustabout with the Ringling Brothers Circus, tasked with handling their star elephant, Daisy, a 7-ton gentle giant. It's a sticky July day in downtown Sarasota, and Jimmy's got a quick errand, grab some feed from a local shop. Daisy's too big to leave at the circus lot a mile away, so he walks her into town, ties her trunk to a parking meter with a rope, and ducks inside. No coins, no meter payment. He figures, who's gonna care? Turns out, plenty of people. A meter maid spots Daisy, clocks the unpaid meter, and calls it in. Next thing Jimmy knows, he's got cops on his tail and a $50 fine slapped on him. Now, $50 doesn't sound like much, but in 1982, that's a week's groceries for Jimmy, a single dad scraping by on circus wages. He tries explaining. It's an elephant, not a car. Doesn't matter. The law's the law, and Sarasota PD isn't budging. Worse, Jimmy doesn't have the cash on him. Circus pays tight, so the cops cuff him for failure to pay and disorderly conduct. He spends a night in county lockup while Daisy's hauled off to an impound lot. Yes, they impounded an elephant. Ever wonder how you even enforce a law this absurd? Apparently, with a straight face and a tow truck. Here's where it gets dumber. The ordinance wasn't just a relic. It had been enforced sporadically over the decades. Sarasota city records show at least 5 other elephant violations since 1950, all fined between $10 and $100. No one repealed it because, well, why bother? It's quirky, makes for a good laugh at city council meetings. But for Jimmy, it's no joke. He's out on bail the next day, thanks to his circus boss, but the fine sticks, and his record now has a mark for something straight out of a cartoon. Does this sound like justice? Or just a system too lazy to clean up its own mess? Let's dig deeper, because this isn't just about one dumb law. It's about what happens when outdated rules clash with real lives, and who pays the price. In the US, thousands of archaic laws still linger on the books, some quirky, some sinister. The American Bar Association estimates over 3,000 such laws nationwide, from banning ice cream on Sundays to jailing people for swearing in public. So what's the harm in leaving them be? Jimmy Russo might have an answer, and it's not as funny as you'd think. Jimmy Russo's night in jail over an unpaid elephant parking fine sounds like a punchline, but it's the kind of absurd reality that makes you question everything. How does a law this ridiculous stay on the books? And who gets hurt when it's enforced? Let's peel back the layers of this lost folklore tale, because what happened to Jimmy isn't just a one-off. It's a warning sign of a legal system that's more theater than justice. Stick around. We're about to uncover some truths that aren't as funny as they seem at first glance. After Jimmy's arrest in July 1982, the story hits Sarasota's local papers. Headline: Circus man jailed for elephant parking mishap. It's a hit at coffee shops. People chuckle over their morning brew. But for Jimmy, it's a nightmare. That $50 fine balloons to $200 with court fees, money he doesn't have. His boss at Ringling Brothers fronts the cash to get him out of jail, but it's a loan, not a gift. Jimmy's now in debt, working double shifts to pay it off while raising a 5-year-old daughter on his own. Ever wonder how a law meant for laughs can turn someone's life into a tightrope act? The Sarasota Ordinance itself, tying elephants to parking meters. Sounds like something out of a kid's book, but its roots aren't so innocent. Dig into city archives, and you'll find it wasn't just about keeping order during the circus boom of the 1920s. It was also a cash grab. Sarasota charged steep fees for circus permits back then, $500 per show, about $8,000 today, and tacked on rules like this to squeeze extra fines from performers who didn't know better. In 1927 alone, city records show over $2,000 collected from animal-related violations. So when Jimmy got nabbed in '82, he wasn't just breaking a law. He was stepping into a trap set decades earlier. Here's where it gets messy, eh? Jimmy's not the only one who's felt the sting of outdated laws. Across the U.S., thousands of archaic rules linger, some quirky, some brutal. In Alabama, it's illegal to wear a fake mustache in church if it causes laughter. In Oklahoma, you can't take a bite of someone else's hamburger without consent. Funny, until someone gets fined, or worse. The American Legislative Exchange Council says over 1,500 such laws have led to fines or arrests since 1970, most hitting low-income folks hardest, like Jimmy. Why? Because they can't afford the fight. So who's really laughing here? Back to Jimmy. He decides to fight the fine in court, hoping for a break. Bad move. The judge, a no-nonsense type named Clara Evans, isn't amused by his "it's just an elephant" defense. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, she snaps, upholding the $200 total. Jimmy's record now carries a misdemeanor, disorderly conduct, which haunts him later when he applies for a better job outside the circus. Employers see criminal history and pass him over, no questions asked. Ever think a parking fine could tank someone's future? It did for Jimmy. Meanwhile, Daisy the elephant's impound stint doesn't go unnoticed. Animal rights groups get wind, stage protests outside City Hall. Turns out, keeping a 7-ton animal in a lot meant for cars isn't exactly humane. The circus gets bad PR. Jimmy gets blamed for poor judgment. His boss cuts his hours as punishment, leaving him scrambling to make rent. All because of a law nobody thought to repeal. Sarasota's city council debates it after the fiasco. Some push to scrap the ordinance. Others argue it's tradition. Guess who wins? Tradition. The law stays, and Jimmy's left picking up the pieces. So what's the real cost of a rule like this? A fine? A night in jail? Or something bigger, like dignity, opportunity, a fair shot? Let's keep digging, because this story's got more twists than a circus tightrope. Jimmy Russo's circus life takes a nosedive after the elephant parking fiasco, but the real chaos hits when Sarasota decides to double down on its quirky law instead of scrapping it. It's 1983, a year after Jimmy's arrest, and the city council, spurred by local buzz and a few tourist dollars, turns Ordinance 17-32 into a marketing gimmick. They slap elephant meter law on brochures, even host a mock trial at a festival with a guy dressed as an elephant in the dock. Cute, right? Not for Jimmy, or the next poor soul who stumbles into this legal trap. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. Jimmy's misdemeanor sticks like gum on a shoe. He tries to get it expunged, spends $300 he doesn't have on a lawyer who says it's a long shot. Turns out, Florida's expungement process in the '80s is a maze of red tape. Only 15% of nonviolent misdemeanors got cleared back then, per state records. Jimmy's stuck with the record, and it costs him. A decent gig driving trucks? Denied, background check flags him. His daughter's school field trip? Can't chaperone. Same reason. All because of a law about parking an elephant. Ever wonder how a harmless rule can ripple out and wreck someone's shot at a normal life? Meanwhile, Sarasota's playing up its elephant law for laughs, but not everyone's amused. In 1984, a small-time circus rolls through town. Same deal as Jimmy's, just trying to make ends meet. Their handler, Maria Lopez, ties their elephant, Jumbo, to a meter during a quick stop. No coins. She's broke after paying for gas. Same meter made, same fine, $50. Maria argues, says she'll pay later, but cops don't care. She gets arrested, same disorderly conduct charge as Jimmy. Only difference? Maria's undocumented. ICE gets called. She's deported 3 months later, leaving her 2 kids with a neighbor. All over an unpaid meter for an elephant. Funny now? Here's the darker edge. Sarasota PD starts using the ordinance as a shakedown. Locals whisper about cops targeting circus workers, mostly low-income, often minorities, for quick fines. City records from 82 to 86 show 12 citations under the elephant law, raking in $600 total. Small change, but it's the principle. Who's policing the police here? Nobody. Florida's statutes give broad leeway for public nuisance enforcement, and the elephant law fits right in. So what's stopping them from stretching it further? Say, finding a kid for tying a dog to a meter? Nothing really. That's the problem. Back to Jimmy. He's done with Sarasota, moves to Tampa in '85, hoping for a fresh start. Doesn't happen. His record follows him like a bad smell. He's stuck hauling props for a third-rate carnival, barely making $200 a week. One night, he gets a letter from an old circus buddy. Sarasota's law made national news after a TV crew does a segment on America's dumbest laws. Jimmy's story gets a mention, no name, just a circus worker fined in '82. He's pissed, not famous. Feels like the world's laughing at his expense while the system that screwed him gets a free pass. Let's zoom out. The U.S. has over 300,000 outdated laws still active. Some ban women from driving in bathrobes. Others fine you for singing off-key in public. The National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers says these laws disproportionately hit the poor, folks who can't fight back. Jimmy and Maria aren't outliers. They're collateral damage. So who benefits from keeping these rules around? Cities looking for quick cash? Cops flexing power? Or just a system too lazy to change? Think about it. Because what happened to Jimmy could happen to anyone, elephant or not. Fast forward to 1990. Jimmy Russo's scraping by in Tampa, still haunted by that elephant-sized blot on his record. Sarasota's elephant meter law remains a tourist gimmick, but a new player enters the scene. A young lawyer named Carla Diaz, fresh out of law school, hungry to make a name for herself. She stumbles across Jimmy's story while researching weird laws for a pro bono project. Smells injustice, digs deeper, finds others like Maria Lopez caught in the same trap. Carla decides to fight, not just for Jimmy, but to get the ordinance repealed. She's taking on a city that's more circus than courtroom. Carla files a class-action lawsuit against Sarasota in '91, representing Jimmy and 5 other circus workers fined under the law. She argues it's unconstitutional, violates due process, disproportionately targets the poor. Sarasota fights back, says it's historical preservation. Court battle drags on 2 years. Carla uncovers city memos admitting the law's a revenue stunt. $1. 200 collected from circus fines since '82, per records. Judge sides with Carla in '93. Ordinance struck down. Jimmy's record expunged. Small settlement of $5,000 split among plaintiffs. Victory, right? Not quite. Jimmy's lost years can't be bought back. Maria's still deported. The law's gone, but the damage lingers. Sarasota plays it off, removes elephant meter from brochures, acts like it never happened. But the case sparks chatter. Legal blogs pick it up, law students debate it in seminars. In 1995, Florida audits its statutes, finds 200-plus outdated laws. Only 30 get repealed. Progress, but slow. Nationally, the U.S. still has 300,000-plus archaic rules per the National Conference of State Legislatures. Most stay, waiting to snare the next Jimmy. So what's the lesson? That one person can fight the system and win? Or that the system only bends when it's embarrassed enough? Let's step back. This isn't just about elephants. It's about laws weaponized against people who can't fight back. So who's accountable? The city? The cops? Or us, for letting these relics fester? Think hard, because the next dumb law might not hit a circus worker. It might hit you. Now, let's hear from you. Is this law just quirky, or a symptom of something uglier? Drop your takes below. We're reading every one. Like this wild ride. Hit that like button. Didn't vibe? Smack dislike. We're cool. Subscribe and ring the bell for more raw tales on Judge It. Next week's story's even weirder, trust me. Share this with someone who'd hate this law too. Keep digging. Keep questioning. See you in the next one.